Do you feel like it's impossible to make a real profit on Airbnb, even though it looks like everyone else is making it work? I've spent the last 16 years in this short-term rental space. I've helped over 2,000 property owners generate more than $1 billion in bookings. I've even sold our short-term rental company for 7 figures. But I've also made a lot of mistakes. Mistakes that wasted time. It kept calendars empty and slowed my progress down massively. So in this video, I'm sharing the 15 biggest mistakes that I made on Airbnb so you can avoid them and grow much faster than I did. And it's starting with the first lesson, which quietly changes everything. When I first properly got into this business, I didn't treat it seriously. It was just extra money, something casual. There was no systems, no checklists, no structure. Clean and dependent on how we felt. Guest replies depended on whether I saw the notification. Pricing was whatever felt right. And at first, it worked. Listen, bookings came in, guests were happy, money arrived. So I told myself, this is easy. That was the start of the problem. One guest said it was not clean as last time. Another said check-in was confusing. I realized what we were delivering was different experiences every time. When I looked at another host who was nearby, same area, same size property, and they charged more. And they were more booked. And they had better reviews. Why? Because they ran it like a proper business. I was running it like a weekend project. The more that I wrote the cleaning checklist, defined response time, tracked numbers, everything changed. Bookings increased and the stress dropped. And so here's the rule. If you run this business like a hobby, expect hobby income. And listen, that brings me on to the next lesson. Airbnb have got this thing called air cover, and it sounds reassuring. It makes you feel safe until something goes wrong. Guest damage. So we thought we'd just report it. Airbnb will handle it. Instead, I got long waits, repeating myself to different reps. It was weeks of uncertainty. There was a moment I understood something important. Airbnb is a platform. It's not my business partner. Their job is to protect their marketplace. My job is to protect my property. So we got third-party insurance. This tightened the house rules. It started to screen guests properly. And because hope is not a strategy, backup plans are. Which brings me on to my next lesson, which was doing everything manually. Listen, it was great until it broke. I wore that manual badge of honor. I told myself I like being hands-on. There's only one property. Calendars were updated manually, messages were typed from scratch, and cleaning arranged from a text message. But then life got busy and I double booked. That sinking feeling, knowing that someone is getting cancelled. And plus, that penalty crushed my ranking because I had to cancel that booking. Now that mistake cost me more than a software ever would. So I implemented a PMS. So PMS is property management software. Then my calendars were automatically synced. Those messages became automated and clarity replaced chaos. So if your system relies on memory, it will break. Which brings me on to my next lesson, lesson number 4, which was relying 100% on Airbnb. For years, every booking came from Airbnb. I thought that was normal until I realized repeat guests were coming back and I was paying 15% again and again and again. And they were getting that on trust that I'd already earned. And that hurt. I didn't own my guests, Airbnb did. So we started small, simple direct booking options. It was a light message that we sent to guests. At first, nothing. And then all of a sudden, one direct booking, then another. And then by next year, it was undeniable. We were more stable, we were more profitable because Airbnb just became a marketing channel, not the business. Which brings me on to my next lesson, lesson number 5. I got so used to my PMS and my new systems and structures and automating that I forgot the core basis of this business, and that was hospitality. So we fixed the operations. Everything was scheduled. It was templated. It was efficient. From a business perspective, it was perfect. But from a guest perspective, it felt cold. Reviews were 5 stars, but they were bland. So they had a smooth stay. Everything worked, but no one mentioned us as humans. So we added one little line, one personalized detail, and it was a mid-stay check-in. It was real local recommendations. It was reviews changed instantly. They started saying it was the best host that we ever had. We were so thoughtful. So listen, automation should run the business, but humans should run the hospitality. Which brings me on to lesson 6, which was that we had no standard operating procedures, otherwise known as SOPs. Everything lived up here in my head until a guest arrived late and the lockbox was empty and I had forgot to put the key back. There was no checklist. The money was paid, but the review was damaged. And that was the impetus that gave me the big reason to write everything down. Things from cleaning steps, the check-in flow, the maintenance process, somebody remembering to put the key back in the lockbox. Procedures are not just for teams, they're for stressful days. Which brings me on to my next lesson. Manual calendars across platforms. Listen, it works until it fails. It happened on one weekend. An instant booking on Airbnb, an inquiry came on booking.com, someone is getting cancelled. Now that anxiety disappears when you sync properly. Remove the risk, but do not damage risk. So make sure that you have a channel manager that works properly and not just on hope. And the next lesson is this. Do not do static pricing. Our biggest mistake that we picked a nightly rate and we left it. Then a major event hit the town. We were sold out instantly and it felt amazing until I saw that all of the other businesses in the area were charging double and they were booked. I literally left money on the table. And then during the slow season, I sat empty because the static pricing felt safe, but it quietly bleeds revenue. Then we looked at something called dynamic pricing, and that fixed it. So we let the market do the work and not just leave it for me to do guesswork. Lesson number 9, I thought my photos were fine. Looking at them, they weren't bad, but they were flat. Some were even dark, uninviting. And then I realized that I needed a professional. And instantly, they were bright, they were clean, they were sharp. They were edited right with the right camera equipment. And overnight, our clicks increased, our inquiries increased, and we confidently were able to put our rates up. And there was no pushback because, you do not compete on quality, you compete on perception. And then we looked further afield and we looked at our listing descriptions. And this was the next listing. So ours was functional. We had beds in the right places. We had bathrooms in the right places. The location was great. But the guests kept asking basic questions. So I rewrote it. We described it as a feeling. Who was it perfect for? Who was it not for? And the bookings improved. And most importantly, the complaints dropped because it was a clear description, a clear expectation. So when the guest arrived, they got what they hoped for. Lesson number 11 is that generic guest messaging. Listen, it was all right. It was fast. It was polite, but it was forgettable. So we added one simple sentence to every message, something personal, whether it was mentioning their kids or the weather or the anniversary. And the reviews started mentioning us. Guests want a host, not a help desk. Lesson number 12 is one that generated a lot of revenue very quickly. So for years, I absorbed the cost of everything. Early check-in, late checkout, extra cleans, special setups for free. I thought that charging a guest would look greedy. Instead, I was being underpaid. So the guests were signaling the demand. They wanted this, so we structured it. We did make it optional, but we made it clear, professional, and also as well, we gave it at a fair price. And the revenue per booking increased. So not offering upsells does not make you generous, it makes you underpaid. Lesson number 13 was ignoring those review patterns. The danger is not that 1-star review, it is the repeated 4-star comments, the same friction point again and again and again until your rating drops. And I started reviewing reviews diagnostically. And when you do that, the patterns matter. If anything got mentioned twice for every 5 reviews, we were fixing it instantly. And guess what? The bookings recovered, the confidence returned. And that leads me on to the next one, which was we didn't have a repeat guest strategy. So every booking felt like we were starting from zero, a brand new guest, which had new risk. So I made returning guests easy. So we rewarded loyalty, we stayed visible, and then our revenue became predictable. A business without repeat guests is not growing, it is surviving. It brings me on to lesson 15, no local guide. A clean property now is not enough. Google is not enough. Guest wants confidence. So we created a simple local guide that had real recommendations from us. It had personal favorites from us. And the reviews changed because of it. Because we're not just selling a bed, we're selling the experience. And that is what makes you in your listing, in your business, unforgettable. And here's the truth. If Airbnb feels hard, it's probably because you are still relying on old strategies. It's probably that you're relying on Airbnb, Booking.com, and Vrbo. You're relying on hope. You're relying on guesswork. The top 1% of hosts are not doing that. They're using a different approach. And so in the next video, I will show you exactly what that is. You can click here to watch that now.